When I used all those words, the examiner was just laughing. He was so interested in my stories that he just said, after the exam, he said, it was nice talking to you. He gave me that compliment.
You are now listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
Hello there, IELTS students. In this podcast, we talk with Bamidele. He's a very smart, energetic, and enthusiastic student from Nigeria. And he shares how he got to band 9 in the reading. And he says it's all about the third passage in the text. Then he shares a very useful strategy for listening, and he got 8.5 in the listening. This strategy is very practical, actually. And in band 8, as you've probably just heard, he's got a very interesting strategy for the speaking, which includes the tenses and stories. And of course, he shares how he got to band 7 in the writing after failing twice. So have a listen to this. It's a very enjoyable interview. I enjoyed talking with Bamidele a lot. And remember, if you found this useful, share it with your friends or go to IELTSPodcast.com and click like. I'd be very grateful for that. And have a great day. And just remember, you can pass this exam. Hello there, podcast listeners. In this tutorial, we're going to talk with Bamidele, and he's a vet from Nigeria. And so, welcome to the podcast, Bamidele. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Ben. How are you doing?
I'm good. So, why are you taking the IELTS exam?
Okay, let me start from what actually spurred me to wanting to take the exam. It was purely for the purpose of immigration, from the word go. Okay, how did that happen? I just discovered one of these days in the summer of last year that quite a number of my friends and colleagues at work have left the country.
Right.
And of course, we are on the same job, we are on the same salary scale, but then people are leaving the country. And then when you look at them, they get to talk about social security, get to talk about a new hold to life.
Yes.
Life offers them new opportunities to, engage it. So I thought that, okay, it wouldn't be a bad idea if not for myself alone, but for my children. My children should be given an education in a more secure environment, a more socially responsible environment. Mind you, not that Nigeria, where I live and I was born, is not a good place. But then, of course, security, social standards is a very, very big problem. So if I can go to a place where in a few years, 3 years, I can get a PhD, it wouldn't be a bad idea. So excellent. I felt getting a PR and becoming a Canadian ultimately was a goal. So that was actually what spurred me to taking the exam.
So you didn't fancy doing it just because you had some time to kill?
No. It was basically due to the need for me to immigrate.
Oh, God, yeah. I was just kidding. So excellent. And what kind of pushed you to do it was not only the immigration, like you said, but your colleagues. A lot of them had up sticks and gone to Canada as well. All just to exactly. Canada or Australia, UK, US as well, or just Canada?
Just one of them went for his PhD in Australia. The rest of them permanently immigrated. They got their PRs and then they are working and getting a new hold of life over there in Canada.
Interesting. And how were you preparing for the IELTS exam before? How were you preparing for it while you were in Nigeria? I guess you're a self-study student. You didn't go to an academy, did you?
I'm a self-study student. Interestingly, my IELTS story is very interesting. It will motivate some of the people that are like me. You know, I was born in Nigeria. I've been schooled with the English language. So to a very large extent, I know that I've got a very good grasp of the language. Yes. I know that fact. But attempting IELTS 3 times really, really, really humbled me. It made me see that it's more than speaking English, it's more than writing good lexical structures, it's more than you writing theses. You know, I've done academic theses all my life. Of course, I'm a veterinarian, so I write a lot of research papers. But then, writing the IELTS was a change in the narrative you get. I did, the first one I attempted was in December of last year, December 1st of last year, general training test. And of course, the result was very good, except that British Council said my proficiency in writing is a band 6.
Oof, that's harsh.
Very harsh. So for someone like me who had a 9 in listening, who had an 8.5 in reading, who had an 8.5 in speaking, and having a 6 in writing, it was a high level of insult to me.
Absolutely.
I felt really insulted.
Yeah.
I felt really, really insulted. So with that gusto, I felt, okay, you have insulted me this time around. In a month's time, I'm going to take another exam. I'm going to sit another exam in a month's time. So January 5, that's just like 34 days after the previous one, I took another exam, and it was a colossal failure. It was it was unexpected. The failure was I couldn't explain it.
But tell us, Bamidele, tell us what happened in the exam. Why did it fall to pieces? How did you end up with the 6? What happens? What happened when you were writing?
I think, like I said, I was overconfident that I knew how to write.
Yes.
I'm a good writer, so I know how to write. I know how to use adjectives. I know how to use phrasal verbs. I'm very good with verbs. All right. Yeah. I'm very good with paraphrasing, synonyms. So I knew that I was good doing those things.
Yeah.
So I just wrote, and then the result came back as a 6 twice.
Wow.
So
hang on a second. Hang on before we get into the third one.
All right.
So I just want to break it down. So you saw the question, and then you just immediately started writing. You just jumped in 2 feet and started writing. Is that what was happening on the exam?
Not exactly. It looks somewhat like that, but not exactly. In my case, you know, it is advised that when you are given the paper to write, you should scribble some information down, so that scribble some information, your introduction, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, then the conclusion. Just scribble. But I'm just very confident that I know offhand that, for example, discuss both views and give your opinion. I know that I will write the first opinion that agrees with the thesis statement. Of course, probably the first proponent. I read that part in the first paragraph. Yeah. I read the other thought in the second paragraph. Then I conclude. But then I was just not following structures until I stumbled on your blog.
Gotcha.
Until I stumbled on that blog, I can tell you that blog is a blessing. It's a blessing. You know, when I sent you a mail that I had passed, it was like a prayer, because for me, if I had not stumbled on it, probably I would just keep going round in circles, getting a 6, getting a 6.5, or maybe a 5.5, like I've seen in some very good English writers too. So for me, stumbling on that blog, Ben Worthington podcast, IELTS podcast, was one of the best things that happened to me in this IELTS journey.
That's super. And can you share with the audience which, if you remember, like which tutorials? Are we talking about like the written tutorials on the site or the audio podcasts that you were listening to? Which were you using?
I used every resource that you sent via mail. Every one of them. I engulfed them. I regurgitated them back to back. You know.
Excellent.
You know, I did that. But the most interesting for me in your blog that I think you should keep doing, it was very helpful to me. The one that you would bring recent questions from let's say October and November.
Yeah.
Writing questions, sample. Then by December you bring, by January you bring November and December, like that. By March you bring January and February. Those resources were ultimately satisfying. I had a lot of satisfaction dealing with those question prompts that you gave. It opened my mind to see how to, not that anything can be asked in the IELTS. Anything can be asked. Anything.
Yeah.
So those questions that you shared made me have that conviction that anything at all can be asked. So, and then following your structures, your essay structures are mind-blowing. They are mind-blowing. For me, I tell students you cannot cram essays, but you can cram structures.
Yes.
Structures are beautiful.
Exactly. That's a very smart point.
Exactly. So the most helpful thing for me was your questions and then the structures that I followed. Because the major problem I had was writing. I was acing all other modules. I was doing well. I was scoring 8.5s in other modules. But then in writing, it was just 6.
Yeah, that's harsh. But one thing, when you're talking about the questions, are we talking about I guess we're talking about the writing questions. The speaking wasn't an issue for you. Recent
specifically.
Yeah, just for the listeners, if you put into Google IELTS podcast recent writing questions, what's happening there is that the students who take the exam, they're sending in their answers, and also we've got Nadine who's looking for questions that have been seen on the internet, that have been seen on the paper, on recent exams, and questions that have been posted online by other students, and she's collecting them all and putting them in one place. So can you tell us how you used these questions? Did you just read them? Did you write essays for them? What did you do with these questions?
Yes, for my third attempt, for the first time, I attempted writing essays. So I was writing at least one essay every week, at least.
Good.
That was at least. So I will cross-reference with people around me to help me check if there are grammatical errors, if there are punctuation errors, if there are wrong use of words, if there are grammar inconsistencies, if there are repeat of synonyms, repeat of words that we don't have to use their synonyms. So over the weeks, I interestingly got reviews from people, feedbacks, and then I think I was good to go. I was good to go. And funny enough, let me just chip this in. A bulk of my preparations, you would agree with me that a bulk of the IELTS questions from October of last year, they have been discuss both views, give your opinion. So I have mastered that question prompt. Like my second name, I had known it like my second name. You know, it's been good. But funnily, when I got to the exam, the third exam, it was problem and solution. You Yes, that was exactly how I felt. I just laughed out. I laughed out so much so that the examiner was looking at what is wrong with this one that's laughing. Because I wasn't expecting a problem and solution question. But then he came and we were able to write. We were able to write. It was a very good experience.
Super. And and just imagining your laugh now, like in the exam, that must have been quite entertaining for the others as well. And the structures, you said that you got the structures, you got those from the mailing list, from joining the mailing list and then getting the emails. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's very correct.
Super. So, just to recapitulate for the students, what Bamidele did was he got the recent questions. A few beeps there. He found the recent questions from IELTSPodcast.com, ones that have been seen in the exams, and prepared for those. And you said that you focused entirely on discuss both views and give your opinion. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah,
right.
That's correct.
And you just mastered that one because you were convinced that this question structure, this question or essay question, this type of essay question, was going to appear on your exam. Correct? That's what you believed.
Exactly.
Right.
That's correct.
But then when you got there, you had the lovely problem and solution, which I think is probably a little bit easier. Would you agree with me?
That was why I was laughing. That was why I laughed out, because it's very easy. It's very, very easy. And, the structures are very straightforward. Yeah. General statement, paraphrase the topic, topic sentence, and in your own word. Then say your thesis statement, like what you're going to do, what that essay is going to do. This essay will discuss possible solutions. We'll discuss problems of so and so, including dash and dash, and also discuss possible solutions, including dash and dash. I think that is about everything that introduction is about. 60, 70 words, you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. And then for the other areas, 8.5s and 9s, that's really good. How were you preparing for those? How did you get those?
Yes, I think for me, speaking has been my greatest strength, followed by listening, because by the level of the kind of work I do, I listen to customer complaints a lot. So I'm used to listening to people. Right. At the same time, I'm used to talking to people. So speaking and listening is always my strength from the word go. So from time, but I have some strategy I use for listening, apart from the fact that you must listen for information. Also, I know that for time, you must be ahead of that audio in your mind. Your mind must be ahead of the audio. Yeah. How do I get to do that? I don't really know how to train people to do that, but I know that my eye is always looking at the following two questions, the succeeding two questions. If I'm on question 1, my mind is on 2 and 3. Right. And my ears are on question 1. My eyes are on 2 and 3. My ears are on 1. So when they mention something about question 1, I write it down. While my eye is working on 2 and 3. It's a difficult strategy to do, but I think over time I've been able to master using my ears and my eyes independently. I've been able to do that very well. So
Fantastic.
That's why it comes out as 8.5 in my listening.
That is a fantastic strategy. And just for the students that are listening, try this strategy. Try it a few times. Maybe do a few practice tests with this strategy. Like it's similar to predict.
Ben, I won't lie to you. I did over 100 listening tests. Practice question. I did over 100. If I'm not lost count, I did over 100.
Gotcha.
My strategy was I had 6 weeks to prepare for my last IELTS, and I did listening test every day in 6 weeks. That's 42 tests at least.
Right.
At least 42 tests, and I had days that I did 3 listening tests. I had days that I did 4. I had days that I did 2. All right.
Gotcha.
So
Wow.
for me, my listening was the test that I prepared for the most.
Wow. Okay.
For my speaking, I got a strategy from you that you don't even know that you gave me that strategy.
Hang on a second.
Strategy from you.
Hang on.
And that strategy was that.
Wait. No. Wait. Just give me a second. Let me just rewind because we're going a bit too fast. I just want to rewind and go back to the. Don't worry. What I was going to say with the listening is try that strategy and see if it works for you. If you've got the time, try it 42 times or 42 tests like Bamidele did, but also be aware that there are other strategies because each person is going to have to find a strategy that works best for them, and there'll come a point where you have to say, okay, this strategy doesn't work for me, I'm going to try another strategy. So that's what I wanted to mention. Yeah. So tell me about the speaking strategy that I gave you by accident.
Okay, Ben. You know that for the speaking test, that 2 minutes of discussion can actually look like 2 hours.
Yes.
Would you agree with me?
Yes, definitely.
That 2 minutes comes across as 2 hours. Because when you are speaking for 30 seconds, you discover that you are repeating words. I have noticed that in a lot of people.
Yes.
So my strategy for that 2 minutes is whichever topic that you are given, try and expand that topic. Somebody will now ask me, how do I expand the topic? Talk about the topic in past tense, talk about the topic in present tense, talk about the topic in future tense. That means that you'll be talking about 3 stories regarding that particular topic.
Excellent.
That strategy is foolproof. It works perfectly.
Super. I love it. And what happened on your speaking test? Can you remember the question and the part 2?
Yes, I can remember vividly. My 2 minutes question was that talk to us about somebody you love working with.
Interesting.
Talk about someone you love working with. Who is the person? Where is the person? How has the person helped your task achievement?
Interesting.
Those were the 3 question prompts. So I just told the examiner that I will be talking to him about 3 personalities that have helped me achieve my goals. One is in my past. In my primary school, I had a colleague that had an unparalleled resilience in finishing homeworks and tasks. So I really enjoyed working with him because he pushed me beyond my limits.
Wonderful.
I have talked about the person. I mentioned his name. I mentioned the time. That was my primary school. So I have achieved that task. And I talked to the examiner about how he helped me. Resilience. He built resilience in me. No matter how tired he was as a child, he would tell you we have to do our own work before we go home.
Wonderful.
All right?
Yeah.
Of course, somebody can ask me, is that story true? It may be true. It may not be true. Do you understand?
I would put money on that it's true because it sounded quite detailed. Is it true?
It is not true.
Oh, you tricked me.
I made that story up, all right? So, then in the present story, I talked about my wife. My wife is an amazing personality to work with. She has a comical way of making very tedious or very hard jobs look very simple.
But is this true or is this another story?
Do you understand? So I talked about my wife. Of course, that is true. That is very true.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, she taught me how to make culinaries. She taught me how to make cakes. She taught me how to do a lot of fries and all that.
Okay,
so that is true. Cool. That's absolutely true.
Good.
Right. So I talked about someone in my future that I've not met before. I made up that name, a professor in a university in Australia, who is a major kingpin in pharmacology, that I would like to work with him in future because I like his work ethic. I like his detailed thesis.
Interesting.
And I've been following him with keenly following him with ardent enthusiasm. So, when I used all those words, the examiner was just laughing. He was so interested in my stories that he just said, after the exam, he said, it was nice talking to you. He gave me that compliment.
Very
good. Nice talking to you.
Very good. Very good. And I like this idea that you said you've basically kind of put a little bit more information there than what was required in the card, because you said, I would like to work with this pharmacology expert. I follow his work keenly, etc., etc. And by doing that, you can talk in the future tense, the future condition, I would like. So that is super.
Exactly.
Wonderful strategy. But good work there. Very impressed. And that was a nice little touch from the examiner as well. Saying, I would like, it was nice talking with you. That's genius. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
And did you say you got an 8.5 or a 9 in the end?
In speaking, I got an 8.
Right.
In reading, I got a 9. In listening, I got a 9. Mm-hmm. Writing, I got a 7.
Wow, good scores there. Tell us about your reading score. How did you manage to get a 9? Was that through practice tests as well?
Reading, I think reading for me was basically because I know how to paraphrase. Mm-hmm. I discovered that any answer in the reading test is a paraphrase. Let me give you an example. If they talk about which of these hotels, which of these accommodations has wireless service or has internet, in the question you will not see internet. You will see something like cellular. You see something like Wi-Fi. You see something like connectivity. So if you're looking for internet, you will not get that answer. You have to be able to paraphrase your keywords. Paraphrase your keywords from the question prompt. And again, I have to really, really, really sound this to prospective students that want to sit the exam. It is best that you start your reading test from the third passage.
Wow.
For 3 reasons. For 3 reasons. The reason number 1 is that the third paragraph, the third passage is always the bulkiest.
Right.
Is the bulkiest. The exam I did, the third paragraph had A to J. That's how many paragraphs? A to J, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. 8 paragraphs. H, J, H, I, J, K. 11 paragraphs.
Right.
It had 11 paragraphs, all right? So you need a lot of time to study that paragraph. So if you start from passage 1, passage 2, those are relatively simple passages. So I always advise people, it has worked for me. I have scored an 8.5 in reading, I've scored 9. So I always advise people to start from the third paragraph.
Genius.
So that the first reason is because it is bulky. Those paragraphs are bulky and they are academic writing. They write them in academic language. So you need a lot of concentration to get through the passage.
Yes.
The second reason for me is that at 20 minutes into the exam, the examiner will talk. You have used 20 minutes of your time. I don't know how to agree, but in Nigeria, it's like that. When you use 20 minutes, they will tell you you have used 20 minutes. That is a very, very, very high level of distraction, all right? So for me, for that reason, I want people to start from the third passage. If you have done your third passage with 20 minutes, when they talk in the second passage, you are not disturbed, all right? Because they are simpler. Those ones are simpler passages.
Gotcha.
Then the third reason that I have is that if you run through the third passage first, there's something in medicine that we call an amnestic response. I will explain that. That means that I have seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
If you have seen something before, you are better prepared to deal with it. So let me take it home. Meaning of what I said is that you haven't thought of the second passage. If you have an extra 10 minutes, which I assume you will have if you're a fast reader,
mm-hmm.
you will be able to go back to that third passage and then skim through and check out your mistakes. Because you have seen the passage before, it will not be new to you again.
I see.
So those are the three reasons why I start from the third passage. And it has worked for me perfectly.
Wonderful. And how did you discover this? By doing multiple reading tests?
Yes, I discovered from multiple practice tests. Ben, let me tell you, I practice like a junkie. When I want to do an exam, I practice like a junkie. My wife was making jokes the other time that you would hardly see a plain sheet in my house without you getting numbering of 1 to 40 there. That we have numbered 1 to 40 in most of the books in my house. So it was a joke, but the joke reflected how well I had read, how well we have done the listening test. I can't lie to you. You cannot pass IELTS without practice. It's impossible.
Absolutely.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's impossible.
Totally agree.
Maybe you can have a 5 or a 6 or a 6.5 or a 7 maybe. But if you want to max out, score a 9, score an 8.5, score an 8,
yeah,
you would have to become a junkie. Do it back to back to back to back to back.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. Wow, thank you. There's been a lot of value there. Now, tell us, what are your plans now? Now that you've got your IELTS certificate, what's the next stage? How are you going to get to Canada now?
Okay, interestingly, IELTS was our limiting factor before.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had not passed our IELTS. My wife has passed since December. She passed the one we did in December. But, I'm the primary applicant for the Canada immigration. So I have to at least score a 7 in writing, at least a 7. So that was what limited our progress. But immediately I got that result. The result came out 15th of March. The result came out 15th of March. I got into the express entry pool of Canada 16th of March. There was a draw 20th of March, and we were drawn. We were given the invitation to apply for permanent residency, and we are on it right now. We are on the very advanced stage of application.
Wow, that's fast, isn't it? That's pretty fast and pretty lucky with the timings as well.
Yes, we're lucky. We're very lucky.
Wow, that is fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish up? Anything else you'd like to say to the students listening to the podcast?
I would like to tell people that failing an exam is not a failure.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.